we have a very special fireside session for all of you, which is going to be chaired by Sandhya Vasudevan, Independent Director, TTK Prestige Limited, and Member Board of Governors TIE Bengaluru. A quick intro about her. Well, Ms. Vasudevan has held senior positions in important organizations such as Deutsche Bank, to Thomson Reuters, to AXA Guardian Royal Exchange, and also the TVS Group before transitioning in 2021 to pursue new opportunities and create meaningful impact before the corporate world. She is going to be talking with our esteemed guest, Honorable Shri Rajeev Gowda, Member of Parliament and Professor at IIM Bangalore. Well, Mr. Gowda was a member of the Rajya Sabha from 2014 to 2020 and was the Congress candidate from Bangalore North in 2024 Lok Sabha elections. From 2023 to 2024, he was the Vice Chairman of the Karnataka State Policy and Planning Commission with the rank of a Cabinet Minister. He's Chairman of the Congress Party's Research Development, was convener of its Manifesto Committee for the 2019 Lok Sabha election, and also a national spokesperson. So let's welcome both of them with the biggest round of applause to kindly take over the stage for all of us.
Good evening. This will be a very different session from the earlier ones. I'm not sure how much of advice that Professor will give on money making, but he'll certainly have perspectives for the long term, as well as perspectives from the rich experience he's had. He's a politician and an academician, very rare combination, especially in our country. He is from Bangalore, but he's had an amazing academic stint internationally and I'll ask him to share his experience. He's been on the board of RBI, the general insurance company. He has held a number of positions globally. He's in Carnegie. I won't go into the details. Because the list is very long, honestly. But what I'd really like to start with, there'll be three sections. A little bit about how he landed up where he is in terms of his early childhood education and his 16 years as an academician in the US, coming back to India and playing a pretty seminal role from 2000 to now, and then his perspectives for the future, which will be actually of real significant interest to many of you because we are looking at investments and perspectives for the future. He's part of the policy Center for Policy within IIM that gives him very good insight into where things are moving. And he's got immense experience in the field of jurisprudence. He's written 2 books. If you haven't seen it, it's not easy to read, but it's definitely interesting. So over to Professor. Would you like to share a little bit about what you've been, your early childhood, a bit about your education and your academic background?
Yeah, thanks, Sandhya, for that lovely introduction. I just wanted to make some edits. First, and even the introduction said I was an MP. I am not currently. I'm X. So I'm actually just a jobless guy at this point. But nonetheless, I do head the research department for the Congress Party, and I'm up to doing all kinds of other things. Part of something called a Brand Bengaluru Committee. But going back to where it all began, so I grew up here, but I grew up in a family of freedom fighters. And my late uncle, M.V. Krishnappa, was, he was a very young hero of the Quit India movement. And then he was probably the youngest member of Nehru's ministry. And he founded Bangalore Dairy. So what Korean is to Gujarat, my uncle is to Karnataka. And what Nandini is today, if you go to Dairy Circle, you'll see a statue. So that sort of thing. Anyway, and then my father was 15 years younger, was jailed at the age of 15 during the freedom struggle. And so I grew up listening to those stories and saying, what can I do when I grow up? And since I thought that there were no more freedom movements, I thought maybe what I need to do is come in through expertise. And that's why I eventually, from St. Joseph's School and College, I went, and I have the same education as Donald Trump, by the way. I went to Fordham and Wharton. That's where the similarity ends. But no, I can levy tariffs on you if I want to. No, but just to say, in general, so I got a PhD in public policy and management from Wharton, did a postdoc at Berkeley, and then was a tenured associate professor at Oklahoma. Once I was promoted, I said, my God, I came to study with the aim of working on India and its challenges. How come it's already 16, 17 years since I landed on the shores of the US? So I resigned, which is not something people with tenure do. Came back to IIM Bangalore, where we helped build the Center for Public Policy. And then the world had changed in the world of politics. You know, if you're saying he might teach you a thing or two about how to make money, sorry, you got the wrong guy. Because we are the old-fashioned idealists, and the people who have learned how to make money are dominating the political sphere and marginalizing those of us who are in politics for some larger causes, okay? So that's, I do know how to make money legitimately. So that's, as long as we speak about that, we're okay, I think. Anyways, the thing is, after that, I was denied tickets multiple times. So if there's one lesson that you take from that, it's resilience, right? Every time, everyone in politics, very, very wonderful people, but they've all got knives in their hands. They're busy. If I were to take off my clothes and show you my back, you'll see all the, scars from various skirmishes. Anyway, I'm not like that. But basically, it's been a long journey. And then I finally got a break in 2014. What shall we say, Mr. S.M. Krishna's term was ending in the Rajya Sabha, and the Congress party had just faced a phenomenal loss, okay? And so Rahul Gandhi, this is proof that he is a seriously bright and capable man, decided that it was time to choose a younger, sort of qualified Congress committed person to enter the Rajya Sabha. And he also gave me charge of what's called the research department, which essentially focuses on, what shall we say, we make sure that our MPs are well prepared for Parliament. I just released a report called The Real State of the Economy, okay, which talks about those aspects of the economy that are absolutely based on government statistics, but somehow don't come to public attention. And I'm happy to share that. It is out there. So things like that, exposing failures or at least, highlighting the challenges, right? And the theme, for example, is what happened to growth, right? If we're going to be stuck at 6 point something, and we keep saying we're the fastest growing country in the world, well, we need to grow 2% more. And every percent less than that we grow, we are taking away the future of a large number of our people. So this is serious stuff, right? Anyway, so that's what we do. And the third thing, of course, is ideation for the future. And one of the reasons I interact wherever and where possible is because we're constantly looking for interesting ideas that we can take forward and implement and, to make a difference to the economy, etc. Anyway, it's been, I must say, I'm 61 now, and I've had this focus from when I was 5 or something, So so it took me 45 years to break into Parliament. Now, the people of North Bangalore, in their wisdom, did not send me to the Lok Sabha. So it's going to be, the journey starts all over again. Okay, so I'm on it.
So let me go back to the point you said about growth. What are some of the things that we can do to increase the growth from 6% to 8%, which some of us in this room may be able to help with?
That's going to be a long conversation.
Which is why we want it.
Anyway, so, I'll just give you, I'll sort of segue into something else that I spoke about today, right? So where are we in terms of R&D, innovation? Are we on the global innovation map? Patents, publications, citations? No. So we are massive underperformers, right? The action, intellectual property, all kinds. I'm giving you a very higher end response here. But, today I'm on the board of governors of my alma mater, St. Joseph's University. So I was laying out a vision to set up what I call the Bengaluru Research and Innovation Consortium. Okay? So I basically said, look, we've got, if any, innovation often happens in clusters. And the kind of wealth that can be generated from that is extraordinary, right? Bangalore, for example, just as a side note, with all these GCCs coming in to this city, it's had a very significant impact on our exports, software and other intangible exports. So that's what. So we can do so much more, right? If you look at Indian industries R&D spend, it's very limited. But if you just take the Bangalore cluster, you have ISRO, DRDO from the government side. You have all these academic institutions, IISc, IIM, you name it. And then NIMHANS and National Law School and Indian Institute of Human Settlements. Across the board, you have institutions of eminence, excellence. You have lots of colleges, engineering colleges, arts and science, all kinds of colleges, and they're just teaching colleges. But we're now putting pressure on faculty to publish if they want promotion and things like that. So one of the side impacts of this is that India is number one in terms of fake publications and all sorts of spurious nonsense. Okay, we seem to be good at that. But the basic point is, what I'm talking about is let's build bridges between these institutions. Let's open doors. Let's create a culture of engagement with knowledge, with ideas. It doesn't take much to get an IISc professor to come and give a guest lecture. When I spoke to the former principal scientific advisor, Vijay Raghavan, who's come back to National Center for Biological Sciences, he said they constantly invite Nobel laureates to their campus. They just don't, Azim Premji, at least they share the Nobel laureates with a public lecture to the city, So we need more of that. Like what BIC has done to our cultural space, we need to do something like that for our intellectual space. So at the higher end, if we can make these connections happen, if we can engage with industry, because also there's a lot of world-class research going on within walls, but they don't engage outside. So if we can create that with the startup culture that we have, with the young talent that we have, we might be able to leapfrog, we may be able to go to catch up with AI and move ahead. All sorts of possibilities exist. And I think we should work together with TAI on this as well. And so that's my current agenda. So at the higher end, you can add tremendous value and generate, one dimension of growth. The other, at the other end of the pyramid, as it were, is to think about what the country needs. Just like you have this National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, which employs people to do rural infrastructure, etc. We have some major threats coming ahead of us. So basically, just take climate change. We are not climate resilient or ready in terms of coping with heat, coping with water shortages, coping, greening larger areas. We're going to see, this is going to be again one long hot summer, and you're going to see a lot of people dying from heat waves, right? So these are all things that in blissful Bengaluru we don't really worry about. But 1 year ago I was campaigning in April, and and there was no sign of rain, and so there was a lot of concern about water shortages and things like that. So if you can start creating green jobs and a green workforce which is going to make India climate resilient, ready, okay, then you have the ability to deploy large numbers of people who are massively underemployed right now. And if you do it right, you can start in our local ways to reverse the impacts, at least in the microclimatic environments that we inhabit. So I'm giving you a top end and a lower end of the pyramid. But the other thing, of course, is that we're massive underperformers when it comes to women in the workforce. If more women were in the workforce, the GDP would automatically go up by a few percent.
Couple of things taking off from what you said. If I were the folks in this room, what is your advice to them with regard to building out patient capital? Because family offices have the potential to look long term. You have to preserve wealth, you have to create, make sure that you're growing, but the opportunity for the long-term patient capital investment, whether you start right from the supporting it at the academic institution level to solving problems so that commercializing to scale, to taking it forward. Any thoughts on that? But then taking another element on what you said at the bottom of the pyramid, the reality is if we don't get the 500 million people out of poverty, India will really struggle in the long term, especially with climate change. And therefore, what are some of the ideas that the family offices can do within their remit to help drive the change? Because they do have the financial power. But what are some of the things that they could participate in from your point of view?
See, patient capital is the need of the hour, but because while the kind of unicorns that we have today are replicating sort of what's worked in the West, in India, and there are many people who question, do we really need quick commerce at that level, instant commerce, whatever it is, and but then the same thing that I'm talking about, research and innovation of the more serious scientific and other kind, is going to require a set of people who are willing to back longer projects in some ways, right? So, but that will have, whatever I'm suggesting doesn't mean pure science, right? There is pure research and there's applied research. Applied research will also take time, and there's probably less funding for some of that, but this is very important, because you can come up with solutions that would have a global possibilities. So that's one dimension that comes to mind. And anyway, with a lot of the short-term perspectives don't match with the kind of patient investments that are required to move that needle there. What is the other part of the question?
Bottom of the pyramid and
yeah. So see there, it's for all of we are the fastest growing economy in the world. We're also providing 800 million people free food grains every day, right? Okay, so that's the other side. If you look at how large is the segment of India that's doing well, represented in this room, it's probably 150 million people or something like that, right? And that segment is doing extremely well. And so there is this, there's one train that has zoomed forward and there's another, still a narrow, whatever. So basically, we've got to look at who's fallen behind. So there are other challenges. For example, lifting people out of poverty, we've been working on. The UPA government did a great job. That progress is continuing. This is my polite way of acknowledging, what has happened. That progress is continuing over the last decade. Let's put it that way. However, there is an issue, which is that one medical emergency can put a family back below the threshold of what we consider the poverty line. So how do we fix that? How do you make healthcare accessible, etc.? And so far, another dimension would be, using telemedicine and AI applications and God knows what else to make a difference. But there, I think we have not got the nuances. Everyone wants to meet a doctor, right? So how are you going to deal with that cultural aspect or whatever? I mean, it's a more complicated story, but that's another field where if you can save people from the ravages of illness, then you'd be making a huge difference to people's lives. Yeah.
At the back. So, do you have questions rather than me asking Professor questions? Yes, that's brilliant.
Namaskar. I will take forward a question what Ms. Vasudevan was speaking on. India not growing at 11%. So last 2 decades, if you take the first decade, India was growing at more than 11%. Last decade, India has been growing at around 8 and 8.5%. You being a part of the policy maker, do you think that the policy is not one of the policy makers in the RBI? Do you think that the policy is not at the grassroots level, one of a major reason why the growth is not happening? Or there are other macro level queries or problems that India is facing, that is why we are not growing at 11% that we expect to grow?
So, I was on the RBI board before I was elected to the Rajya Sabha. In fact, I had to resign early because you can't be both. And so RBI has been trying to nurture newer kinds of inclusive finance and things like that. But the big success, what is empowering, is, you create small finance banks, you promote microfinance, things like that. But actually you've created another challenge where too much money is chasing the same people, and people are getting into debt traps at the base of the pyramid. There are other crises that are lurking deep down. Okay, but on the other hand, when you take a look at what our city has contributed, digital public infrastructure, right? That UPI payment mechanism is transforming the street vendors' possibilities. It's allowing money to go to, everyone to participate, to move into the digital era, and to actually, I think it's created more of a market for people, because if you think that you're passing by some vendor and you think, oh, I don't have enough cash, you can always use this, and so there's more business that's being generated. So I think we're on the verge of more progress at the base of the pyramid. But otherwise, there were things like demonetization, all that set us back, and we haven't, strictly recovered. But if you wanted a policy prescription from me, I keep telling everyone from Jaitley down, which is cut the taxes on petroleum. See, basically, during UPA, $140 per barrel. When NDA started, $40 per barrel. But the price, you have not seen a change in the petrol one, right? Because they've been happily keeping the taxes and cesses and surcharges very high. Put more of that in people's hands. It'll boost the economy. They just they've given a big corporate tax cut. What happened to that? But so basically, you need to do something like that. Little bit more in the hands of people who can spend it, who can clear their debts, who can, poverty also creates problem in the mind. You don't get a sense that you can change your circumstances and move forward. It's a very bad thing in that larger sense as well.
No, I have a feeling this session should have been for an hour, more Q&A. But I think he'll be around a little bit at least after this. Hope so.
When's cocktail hour?
Shortly
Come back
after
for
this.
it.
Shortly after this. So we'll just wrap up the session. But for that, what's your mood for the future? Next 20 years, what's your mood?
I'm betting with my life on it, right? Essentially, my mood is upbeat, and upbeat for India's prospects, upbeat that I'll make it back to Parliament one day, upbeat that the Congress party will, return to its natural place as the party of governance. Okay, many things. More than anything else, look, being in Bengaluru in Karnataka is just a wonderful, the kind of ebullience that you have here, the energy, the talent, the optimism, and the ability to translate those things into actual action. I think this is...
On that note, thank you very much. Real pleasure.
So I request you to kindly stay back, and let's have Madhushri and Mr. Prakash Bulusu, Joint CEO from Private Wealth and Securities, IIFL Capital, to kindly join us on stage to hand over the token of appreciation from Band Talk to the gentleman. Let's have the biggest round of applause. What an amazing session this has been indeed for all of us. This is Mr. Honorable Shri Rajeev Gowda, ex-member of Parliament, I'll say now. And let's give it up to our wonderful moderator, Sandhya Vasudevan ma'am, Independent Director, TTK Prestige Limited, and Member Board of Governors, TIE Bangalore. Let's have the biggest round of applause to both of these eminent personalities. It has indeed been an amazing session, and I usually use my phone, but I did hear to the session. So let's have the biggest round of applause to all of these fabulous people here on stage.
6. A gin distilled with 6 unique Japanese botanicals harvested at their peak. Distilled to embody the blessings of nature. Roku Gin, alive with the best of every season.